In this video, we discuss 6 hidden financial traps that await you when you turn 62, and more importantly, how to avoid them. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
In a previous video, I discussed some of the benefits of turning age 62 and some of the financial advantages that you qualify for once you hit that age. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the things that are set up that can actually hurt you if you're not paying attention. All right, let's get into it. The first hidden trap is claiming Social Security too early. At age 62, you can claim Social Security, but you get 70% of what you would get at full retirement age. For most people, that's age 67. There are a lot of good reasons to take Social Security early, but there are also a lot of bad reasons too. And one of the biggest reasons people take Social Security at age 62 is because they have been waiting their entire life to take Social Security, and they're not going to wait a day longer. That's a very common comment that we get on the channel here and also at the Retirement Ready Academy. People say things like, I've given too much to the government already, now it's time for me to take some of that contribution back. Or it's all rigged and it's going to fall apart tomorrow, so I'm going to get what I can while I can. And while some of the reasons to claim at 62 are really good, legitimate reasons, a lot of the lore out there that people hear and act upon is just that. It's lore. It's not real. And because they're making an important decision based on false information, they get a suboptimal outcome. And who's affected by this decision? Well, first and foremost, it is the worker who is claiming Social Security based on his or her own work record. But also the spouse can claim a spousal benefit at age 62 as well, with a reduced benefit. Now, why is this a hidden trap? Why don't people see this coming? Well, a lot of people don't take the time to study their Social Security. They spend more time planning their next vacation than they do planning when to take Social Security and all of the other decisions around Social Security, because there are quite a few. In fact, there was a study done using data from the University of Michigan, and that data suggested that 90% plus of the people who take Social Security take it at the wrong time, either too early or too late. The study went on to highlight that people who make the wrong decision when it comes to Social Security lose out on average over $110,000 in income and over $65,000 in savings over their lifetime. And this makes sense. Most people cite that they make the decision on when to take Social Security based on when a friend or a family member took their Social Security. They don't really do any work themselves outside of asking for the opinion of a few people that are not really in their financial situation. So how do you avoid this trap? How do you know when it is the right time for you? Well, there are a lot of good books out there on the subject, and also I have a course called Security Simplified, which takes people from beginner to confident in under 5 hours. If you're interested in the course, go to holyschmidt.com/social security to learn more. The next risk is job loss risk. And the fact is, at age 62, you are much more likely to lose your job than in the beginning or middle part of your career. You put in 30 or 40 years into your career, and oftentimes, with a lot of people anyway, it's been at the same company, or at least the vast majority of their time has been at the same company, so they almost feel like their job is an entitlement. They get comfortable. They think that they can't be replaced. They know something that nobody else knows, and therefore they have proprietary knowledge that will keep them safe even during company layoffs. Or they feel like they've got great relationships with company management, and that group would never do anything to them. But older workers are expensive. You've had 30 years, 40 years for your income to grow, and that job can be hired out to somebody, in many cases, for a small percentage of what you're making. More importantly, to some companies, that person in that role at age 62 is blocking the next generation from moving up. And so what do? Well, during layoffs, that person gets laid off. So what do you do in this situation? How do you avoid this hidden trap? Well, unfortunately, this one isn't as easy as just making a decision, because you're not the one who's making the decision, oftentimes anyway. So understanding what could happen and looking at your options before the situation occurs is of paramount importance. Look at the people who came before you. Look at the people at your level. See what's happening with them. Look in the market and see who do you know that you might want to contact and make a plan B list, if you will. The plan B list is often called the exit strategy list. And people will design a list with not one, not two, but 3 or 4 different options in case something does happen to them. Exactly what they need to do when the situation occurs. And even if the people who came before you were never laid off, and even if the people who are at your level aren't laid off, it's important to note that it could happen. So have that list ready anyway, just in case. Next, not realizing until it's too late that there's a health insurance gap between the time you leave your job and the time you receive Medicare at age 65. This, for a lot of people, is their single biggest blind spot. Why? Number one, because it is a lot more expensive than they think it's going to be when they leave their job, particularly at age 62, when they're going to have, potentially anyway, have significant health issues. And number two, it's not something that makes it onto the line item list of things that you need to prepare for, unfortunately. And just to be super clear on this point, between the time you leave your job, whether it's age 62, 63, 61, whatever the age, and 65, you need to have health insurance. And oftentimes people pay for that themselves. At that age, it can be significant. Here in New York, someone who is 61 or 62 might pay $1,500 a month per person. Now, fortunately, there are a lot of ways to mitigate this. Maybe your employer has a program for retirees so that they can have health insurance until they reach 65. A lot of them don't, unfortunately. Or you have a spouse that's still working and you can go on his or her plan. Or you look at the ACA marketplace and look at a plan based on your income, which might be a lot less expensive than this number that I just mentioned. And the single biggest reason that people don't see this one coming, because it's a short-term problem. Short-term meaning usually only a few years. People, as they approach retirement, think about the next decade, the next 2 decades, the next 3 decades. They don't think about the next 1, 2, 3 years ahead, at least not in depth. So what can you do about it? Well, the first is to understand your options. Go to my website, hollyschmidt.com/free report, and you can download my healthcare in retirement report for free. It's my free gift to you. It's totally free. Put in your email address. It'll be emailed to you, and you'll also get on our list, so you'll get tips, tricks, and other information once or twice a week. It's a very useful guide. But even if you already understand your options and you don't need the download, just make sure you understand the price of your options, because a lot of people understand what their options are, but they actually don't research the cost for each one of those options until they're already in the situation. Next up, pension reductions. If you're lucky enough to have a work pension, understanding what your payment is going to be at different ages is really important. A lot of people don't think that there's a big difference between 62 and, say, 65, but with a lot of plans, there's a massive difference. And not understanding what that difference is makes a difference in the quality of your life in retirement in many cases. And this happens all the time, by the way. People, believe it or not, have put themselves in a very enviable position to work for an employer that provides a pension, but then they don't understand the plan rules. So what should you do about it? Well, at a minimum, just download your plan document from your company website, talk to HR, discuss it with somebody who knows the structure of the pension to make sure that you don't get caught off guard. Next up, not understanding what the survivor benefit implications are if you take Social Security. Now, we led off this discussion with the fact that you have a reduced payment if you draw Social Security at age 62 versus full retirement age. But that same payment becomes the basis for your survivor if they need to claim the survivor benefit. The larger your Social Security payment, the larger the survivor benefit if you are the primary insured. And this one happens all too often, and the scenario is very specific. People understand and are willing to accept the fact that they get a reduced payment for claiming Social Security at age 62, but they don't do the next iteration out, which is what's the effect on the survivor benefit. It's one thing if you know that your payment is going to be less because you claim early. It's another if you know your spouse's survivor benefit is going to be less if you claim early. And of course, not only does it affect the spouse, but sometimes it affects the children's benefit as well, if the children are under a certain age. The point is, understanding what happens to the survivor benefit is really important. The next is what I call the lifestyle inflation trap. When people reach age 62, they feel like they are entitled to spend a little bit more aggressively because they've waited a very long time to reach that magic number. So what do? Well, they spend more. And in fact, there was a JP Morgan report. If you look at the video right before this one, that video talks about how spending actually goes up for a lot of people when they first retire. But they spend more. They spend money on travel. They spend money on gifts. They spend money on lifestyle upgrades. They join the country club that they never had time for before. The list goes on and on and on because at age 62, they have, in many cases, a lot of money sitting in a retirement account, calling their name, and Social Security, potentially anyway. So why don't people see this? Well, for whatever reason, you can take the person who spent their entire life planning for that moment when they leave the workforce, oftentimes around age 62, and they become an in-the-moment thinker. It's their moment, and they're going to maximize the enjoyment of that time in their life. So what should you do about it? Well, model out your cash flow for the future and understand your probability of success. Holy Schmidt is an affiliate of BOLDIN personal financial planning software. I personally use BOLDIN, and frankly, it is a wonderful tool. But even if you don't use financial planning software, you can use something. Even a spreadsheet is better than just taking a guess at what it should look like. If BOLDIN is of interest to you, go to go.boldin.com/holyschmidt, and you can try it free for 2 weeks. After that, it's $12 a month. The final trap at age 62, underestimating longevity. A lot of people think at age 62 that they're not going to make it to 92. In fact, if you ask the average 62-year-old who's starting to get some aches and pains that they didn't have before, or they're looking at their family history, and you ask them how long they think they're going to live, oftentimes they will way undershoot the mark. Sometimes their thinking is rational, and they point to family members who didn't have a long life unexpectedly, and there are a large number of them. Other times they just have a feeling that it's going to be them who's going to be shortchanged. But because of the advances in medical technology and because nobody knows what tomorrow will bring, it's important to understand that you could live a very long time, even if you feel like you're not going to live a very long time at age 62. One of the big things you can do is get crystal clear about what your health picture looks like. Talk to your doctor. Read up on a lot of the wellness and physical fitness trends out there. People are doing a lot of things today that they weren't doing even 20 or 30 years ago, which is not only extending the quality of their life, but extending the length of their life. 62 may feel late, but someone who's 62 could live to be 80, 90, even 100, especially with the advances in medical technology that are happening right now. Understanding that the way the world looks today and the way the world might look even in 10 years can be radically different. So planning accordingly is really important. If you'd like this video, check out that video, things you can now do at age 62. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.